Such a great event to support, and I'm great that I can be here today to support you and to spread as well the awareness, to share this mission together of spreading awareness. And this project is absolutely fantastic, and I really want to praise you all for this wonderful work. And especially at your age, I think it's so wonderful to see that you're concerned and to see your very mature analysis of the world. So today, from my point of view of being a coach and my experience of working abroad, I'm going to be talking about what mental health is in the world, and give you a little bit of a definition. And then we're going to be looking a little bit more about what happens when you're a teenager and how does the mental health happen at that time? What's specific to this particular age? And then, of course, looking at solutions. So, starting with mental health in the World Health Organization is actually showing that anxiety and depression is increasing. So, there is more and more cases that are being diagnosed. And this is also because the diagnosis is getting better and better. So, there used to be a lot of people not really taken seriously, struggling with mental health. And now it is really considered being more and more diagnosed, and there's more awareness around it, which is a great thing. And it's amazing now to consider that the very definition of mental health has got health in it. So mental health is an integral and essential component of health. So there's been a massive change toward this, in terms of consideration, that it turns out it's not something that happens in your head, or it's not something that's comfortable, that's something that you have, like happiness, that's impossible. Maybe you can get it, but if you're not happy, it's something in your head. No, it is really the connection with health is now very big, and there isn't such thing different from physical and mental health are necessary if you want to be healthy. So what's a mental illness? So a mental illness, a condition, is something that's got a negative effect on the way an individual would think, would feel, and behave, and or behave. So that's really interesting to consider, because this really has an effect, really big, on the person and on its life, and that's not less than a physical problem. It actually, it can be seen, it can have a massive impact on somebody's life. And that's also being changing all around the world, about the way that it's being perceived by people. So in the world, there's a lot of inequalities, as you're probably aware, about mental health and about the way it's treated. So I wanted to show you this map. This map shows a psychiatrist working in mental health around the world. So that was in 2011. And so you can see, the lighter the color, the less psychiatrists are available, and the darker the color, the more psychiatrists is available. And this is really showing the inequalities and all the issues that still need to be addressed towards this. And it's really massive, really important. So that was a general sort of presentation on mental health. So now let's look at what's more specific in teenagers. Mental health as a teenagers. So again, the same organization says that the consequences of not addressing mental health as a teenager extend to adulthood. So most of the time, they're being created, they appear at this particular time of life, and then it can impair both physical and mental health, and limiting opportunities to lead a fulfilling life as an adult. What does that say? That's critical, isn't it? So it means that if a teenager is struggling at this time of life, that he's more likely to be an adult that's not having a great life. And what does that make in terms of a society, or even at the scale of the world? If people are unhappy and unhealthy. So that's really something really important to address and to take into account. So teenage years is a really really challenging time. So really, if yourself is a teenager, or if your close one or your friends or relative are a teenager, it's really important to remember that the body is changing. So there's this transition phase between childhood and adulthood, yes, and the body is changing, all the hormonal states is changing, and that is very overwhelming, and that can create all sorts of emotions, and even the center of gravity in the body is changing. It's massive change. And as well as the personality is also growing and building, and it's not completely complete yet. It's still in the process of becoming yourself, becoming and defining, discovering who you are. So in itself, being a teenager is a very challenging time. And even if everything else is perfect in your life, you can still experience mental health problems. So no wonder if the situation it's a bit difficult. Like I'm thinking about the pandemic, if there's stress or trauma, or if your country is going through a difficult phase, can you imagine the multiple challenges that you have to be facing at that time? So no wonder that you're struggling. This is absolutely normal, and no wonder that you need help. And that's absolutely normal as well, and it needs to be developed. So, what sorts of mental health conditions are very common or classic in when you are a teenager? So, it could be emotional disorders. So, that's, for example, anxiety and depression. It can be behavioral disorders connected to learning, difficulty to learn, hyperactivity, for example, or violent behavior, for example. Eating disorders are also very common in teenagers, and that's also a way to show in the behavior, and that's not controlled, of course, by the teenager, to show that there's something wrong inside. That's what the behaviors usually show. When you see somebody having a weird behavior, there's usually a cause, could be linked to mental health. So it's important to keep that in mind as well. So eating disorders could be eating too little or too much, and that's also a way of harming. It can be very dangerous for health. Psychosis could be in hallucinations, delusions that could lead to severe conditions as well. Suicide and self harm are very big, of course, as teenagers. And it's also crucial to remember that among all the suicides in teenagers in the world, 90% of them happen in low and middle income countries. So again, once again, very, very important consequence that needs to be addressed and worked on a global level. Risk-taking behaviors, very classically, could be alcohol, cigarettes, smoking, drugs, or sexual risk behavior. So really important towards this year to continue promote and prevent. So just explaining like how it works, what are the aspects, and what are the consequences. It's very crucial. So a lot of awareness needs to be spread, and early detection of the problem and the treatment is the best way to address that kind of problems. So it's great really to have that in mind. That's already a first step, and that's already a big progress in itself. Looking at solutions now, talking talking helps. Talking is always recommended. First, because you realize then you're not the only one. You're not the only one going through this. And as I said, it's very common, even so common that probably every person in one's life will experience at some point some mental health issue. Every person. This is how common it is. So you're not struggling on your own. You're not alone. You're not broken, or you're not mad. That's really important. If you've been experiencing that kind of symptoms, or if you're very close to someone in your family or a friend experiencing that kind of symptoms, it can be addressed, it can be cured. And the first thing that can be recommended in that case is talking. That's why I think this Vimitas platform is so amazing, because it's not always possible, right, to talk to somebody, to find a psychiatrist. There can be money issues, it can be not very easily accessible in your country, so there can be stigmas as well around getting help and talking about problems. And this anonymous platform is going to be huge, and it's going to be a massive help for people all over the world that cannot find as well people, or complementary, if they already have friends they can talk to, complementary way to talk, to express, to write. And as Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, said, the catharsis in itself is the first step towards healing. And most of the therapies that are available, psychotherapies, psychiatry, are talk therapies. So, of course, they are done with the help of a professional that is trained, and that's the best case if you can access, of course, that professional help. It's the best way to address a problem and to seek healing. But even just the opportunity to be able to talk just puts this problem outside of you, and it becomes more manageable. It becomes something that you can uh, sort of put down a little bit, and the burden is a little bit lighter. So it's definitely a massive solution that you can reach easily with this platform, for example. Other useful tools. So those tools that I'm going to be talking about are more about around well-being, so you can access, such as exercise, having a very healthy routine, sleeping well, eating healthy, meditation. As it was mentioned in the presentation, I use a lot of meditation in my everyday life, about 2 hours a day, and it's amazing to see this great teaching that comes from the East, right? It's growing also here in the West, and the effect on mental health is amazing, on the happiness and on the way to see life is absolutely amazing, and I can only recommend it. And there's so many resources now online for free that you can access, that you should check it out. Really, it really makes a huge difference. If you're more physical, it could be also breathing exercises, it could be yoga, and just building more positivity in your life, smiling more. You can write a lot as well. Do a journal and try to focus on the positive. What can I be grateful for today? What was great in my life today? That can really help to sort of uplift your mood when you're struggling and when you're going through difficult times. It doesn't mean that you should not say as well about what's going on for you and what struggles you go through, but it helps to see life in a more positive light. And there's been a lot of studies actually about that are absolutely amazing. And there's one that I wanted to share about today. And just the fact of smiling for 2 minutes. So even if you don't feel like smiling, you can even just hold a pen in between your teeth, just like this, for 2 minutes. And this very movement just sends a signal to your brain and makes you more happy. This is how mechanical it is. More happiness creates more happiness. So loads of resources online are accessible about that as well, and there are really little things but put together, they can make a big difference. So that's definitely something that's available right here, right now, that you can implement in your life on an everyday basis. And then to change the world, guys, it starts with you. It starts with you, and it's already very amazing that you're just here listening to this talk. You're just here joining this event. And I'm so optimistic. It gives me so much hope to see that. Because as Gandhi said, and as you know, become the change you want to see in the world. And that's the very first thing. And towards awareness, it's the same thing. It starts with you. It starts with you about mental health, and you can really spread that idea if you're really convinced in down in your heart. So what does that mean? That means that you have more empathy as well towards people, no judgment, because you know, because it's proven scientifically now that having mental health problems is not being crazy, it's not being broken, and it can be fixed, it can be helped. And the first thing you can do is help yourself, is really change deep down and make sure that you've got all this love, all this compassion that can be spread out of the world. And this is really all what this event is about, and it's such a great honor to be part of it. Thank you very much for listening.